Hello, everybody. Welcome, willkommen to Sunday night's interesting modelling show. It's the end of January.
It is indeed.
Yay! And it's the. Do you believe it is the Super Bowl tonight on the radio?
Is that the one where they just throw the ball at each other and then
kind of rugby with padding.
crash?
Right, actually, so that's half the audience we've upset already.
Actually,
so,
I have to say, I do like American football. I do like watching it, and I've sort of got into it a lot over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, thanks to my son, who is a massive fan. So yeah,
at least I think it is tonight. Let me just.
It
check
is tonight.
It is. Yeah, right. Yes, okay.
It is.
I thought it was.
And interestingly, there will be fans in the arena because over the last, from what I can gather, over the last week, there's going to be 20,000 fans in the arena, most of which, from what I've been told, will be healthcare workers, and also a number of fans on top of that who have sort of entered a raffle, I guess, to get a seat. But over the last 3 days, they have been regularly COVID tested over that 3-day period to ensure that they're all kind of clear. And obviously, anybody that isn't clear within that 3 days then isn't allowed in. But they've apparently gone out wildly out of their way to make it a spectacle. I think the arena is something like 60,000 or 65,000, but there are going to be 20,000 in there, which allows them to socially distance as well and make the Super Bowl sort of as close as they possibly can, given the environment that we're in, to an actual game with fans.
I am going to try my darndest tonight to actually stay up and listen to it. I might actually be out here in the workshop with an extra layer of clothes on, just listen to it on the radio and work into the small hours. Just one of those little event things that sometimes
I might give it. I think I'm going to give it at least a partial watch until I fall asleep. Yeah. But also, and at the risk of really offending a lot of our American friends, obviously Tom Brady's playing, and whether you like it or not, he is the very best of the best, and it's kind of almost worth watching just to see how he can turn a game. So yes, indeed, it'll be good.
And also a good result, Upton Park this afternoon.
Yes,
Upton Park. I called it Upton Park.
Upton Park. You mean the London Stadium, as it is known? Interestingly, given that Liverpool seem to have the most makeshift side in the history of the Premier League and no back four and virtually no midfield, they beat the team one place below them 3-1, which was highly pleasing to watch.
Right. I can see the numbers tumbling here because we're talking about sport. So
can we just change the subject slightly then onto TV and say that anybody that's not watched it should watch Queen's Gambit, which is the greatest television program I've seen in at least the last 20 years.
I've heard good things about that, and also the Russell T Davies one as well. That's apparently very good.
It's a Sin.
It's a Sin. Apparently that's very
which
good
is extraordinary. I only watched about 60% of that. Liz watched it all, and that is just the most powerful television. Well worth a watch.
Now you have reminded me. I'll put the link up for this as well. For viewers in the United Kingdom, BBC Two this afternoon, a fine film called The Train, starring Burt Lancaster. If you've never seen it, it's based on the true story about how the French resistance tried to stop the Nazis from looting art from France in the last days of the war. But it is a stunning film. It is absolutely stunning, and it's being made in the 1960s, black and white film, which actually adds to the realism of it to some extent because it lends it that kind of period kind of atmosphere. When they needed to derail trains or blow up trains or do things, they just did them with full-size trains. There is one sequence in there where Burt Lancaster shimmies down a ladder on a gantry, literally does that sliding thing, runs along and jumps onto a moving train. Right? Can you imagine doing that these days without either A, huge insurance problems, or B, just like, well, digitally we'll add Tom Cruise's face onto the stuntman and whatever. Yeah. It is a stunning film. I'll put the link up to it. If you've never seen Burt Lancaster film The Train, prepare to have your socks blown off, because it is one of the finest. When I say one of the finest war films ever made, it's one of the finest anti-war films ever made. It's brilliant.
Also, changing the subject slightly, you appear to have changed your name yet again.
No,
now you are you are now Jonathan Mock BTEC, and I am simply Spencer. So I don't even have a surname within this parish. You now have a Jonathan Mock BTEC. I'm wondering whether there's a comma missing between Jonathan and Mock. Is this just a thing now? You've gone from being whatever you were, Dudley Bowfighter.
No, I've just
from a couple of weeks.
If you've got qualifications, you may as well kind of like pimp them. And I have a BTEC in graphic design. I never turned up for the final 2 weeks of the course, but I still got my BTEC.
So this is you just lording it over me, is it? That's the way that this is working. I'm just Spencer. I imagine that next week I'm going to get on here, and all I'll have in that little box will be S.
You type your name in. This is not me. Right, there we go. Look, that's better. In fact, it did this. We'll get on to the modelling stuff in a minute, folks. It did remind me this week that Tony Hart started trending on Twitter, and I was like, oh God, he's not died again, has he? No, it was a thing Tony Hart did, and it was like him doing perspective. It was from Vision On because Pat Casey was with him, and it reminded me of a discussion I had with an art teacher at school who hated Tony Hart. You mentioned Tony Hart's name, and this art teacher he'd go off on a fury about what he thought Tony Hart was, rubbish and this, that, and the other. And I said to this art teacher of mine, well, the problem there is Tony Hart popularizes art, whereas you take all the joy out of it, sir. Not a man to hold a grudge. He tried to have me expelled.
So I read this and laughed, obviously, because it's a very funny story. But when you say he tried to get you expelled, on what basis? On the basis that he didn't like Tony Hart? I'd like to have seen that written down.
I don't know what his reasoning was, but I was then hauled up in front of the headmaster, where I argued my corner, and I'll tell you the other story.
It's just I love the idea of it. I'm going to get you. You're going to be expelled for that. For what, sir? For the fact that I disagreed with your stance on one of the most popular artists in the UK. You muppet.
Yeah, I mean, I was eventually expelled, but not for that. But we'll come on to that another time.
Were you? Please tell me that's true.
I was expelled for wearing jeans, but we'll tell that story.
Really? Oh my Lord.
Right, let's crack on. Projects that we're working on at the moment. Hello, everybody. Actual modelling content now. You may have seen that. My little ex-Eschi, currently Italeri SD KFZ 251, which is the Stuka Zu Fluss. No wonder this thing defeated me in 1985, because it is so finicky. Let's just say I have access now to glues and things that I didn't have back in 1985. Anyway, look, it's covered in black primer, and we're going to put some desert sand on that. We also have we have a nice Stegosaurus, according to Mr. Pollard, a Triceratops.
Looks like one of them their T-Rexes.
From Tamiya. Great fun with this for the simple reason, in order to hide the joins around the legs. Although the funny thing is, what looks like the join on that front leg isn't. That's actually a molded feature. But in order to get rid of the joins, I was using Tamiya putty and Tamiya liquid cement and just stippling it in there. And I just thought, you know what, the actual surface texture of this thing is a bit too smooth for my liking. So I did a Martin Kovac and just carried on stippling pretty much the whole upper surfaces of that. So that'll be painted tomorrow. And finally, I was asked to build this. It's the old Italeri Tornado GR1. And as you can see, we have the black super glue talcum powder mix there, because the fit of that upper and lower fuselage is not brilliant, but
it actually makes it look like a Tornado ADV with that line down the nose.
Yeah, it does a bit. But the shape isn't actually not that far off for an ADV, but never mind.
Yeah,
but anyway,
it's a bit long, isn't it?
We are going to be, well, it's because the intakes aren't on there. That's what's throwing you there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But we will be. That's built straight from the box. So actually, sometimes just building stuff straight from the box because you have to is actually quite liberating, because you're not sat there kind of like doing what you've been doing with your tiger moth and your tomcat?
Yes. I did a video yesterday. I actually did 2 videos after the one sort of went down, and the second video became a bit of a discussion about glue, which was somewhat interesting. But yeah, so I've been obviously working this week on the tiger moth, which my good friend Jonathan Mott BTech is going to be helping me out with, because he's going to be cutting me some masks, because the version that I've decided to do, with his very gracious help, is a civilian one, which is going to be painted in yellow, silver wings, and it's got black lettering on the upper wings, lower wings, and fuselage, which is going to look really, really pretty, I think. So that's what I've been doing, and I've obviously, I think I showed you this last week, or certainly, you know, as you can see, I've been adding detail inside this thing, so it's sort of been reworked a little bit. You can sort of see inside the wings.
We have got to find a source for that yellow ABS.
We have, really, because it's sort of been a lot of people have been asking about the ABS, and I mentioned it yesterday because questions seem to have been coming and going. It is a very thin ABS. And one of the reasons why I use it, apart from the fact it stands out in the photographs, is you can fold it. So you can cut it, and also it cuts without creating a raised burr, which you get if you imagine when you cut something, you get that kind of raised burr. It doesn't do that. It's so hard as a material, so dense as a plastic, that it cuts really beautifully, and it cuts very sharp. But also you can actually bend it, and I've used it to create some C-shaped locks on the inside of the cockpit, and it's really nice. But I got that from Spain. Friends in Spain sent me that. Diego Ciano, I think, might have been one of them that sent some of that over, because they can get it over there, and we don't seem to have found it over here. I'm thinking that maybe EMA might have some. Plastruct might be the place, because they obviously deal with ABS. But it is a very nice material to work with. And also, there have been discussions over the last few years, I've noticed, about very thin plasticard. You used to be able to get plasticard that was almost paper thin, and modelers would cut it and use it for doing rib tapes almost.
Yeah.
But you can't get that anymore. You can't get plasticard that's that thin. So this is the nearest I've got to that, but it is extraordinarily beautiful to work with, and it cuts so precisely. And the other thing as well is, when you cut strips of it, unlike plasticard, it doesn't curl. You know, when you cut a strip of plasticard away from the edge of a sheet, it will curl away. This stuff doesn't. It just cuts. It's fabulous. So we are looking for that. Anybody that's interested in this yellow card, we'll see if we can find some, because at the moment
throw that open to the viewers. If you can find us that very, very thin kind of ABS, whatever it is, ABS acrylic plastic sheet, then do let us know, because
it's something like 0.2 or 0.3 of a millimeter. It's very thin. And I've got similar white plasticard, but it doesn't seem to be quite as thin and not quite as nice to work. So yeah, if we can find it, we'll try and do it. And finally, the other thing that I've obviously been working on this week is the Tomcat, which John mentioned last week, and I thought, well, I may as well sort of cat's out the bag, really, which is good, because it just means that I can sort of chart it a little bit over the next couple of months of working on. So I've been doing some of the sub-assembly work and rescribes and all that sort of stuff. So that's being worked on as we speak. And when you've got a Tomcat, that's one section of the Tomcat, and that's the wings of your tiger moth, you get an idea of just how much additional kind of work. That looks like a piece of a Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, it does a bit.
So you get an idea of how big this thing is. But yeah, so at the moment I'm about 80% away through scribing this, and then with a bit of luck I can start putting it together. So that's it. That's what I've been doing this here week.
Right. Shall we start talking rubbish?
Yay! Yes, let's talk absolute garbage. Again.
Kit of the year.
Look at it. Just look at it.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, it's so great. I do. Yeah, I know. I know. It feels as though all we do is big up Mini Art, and then every week they pull something else out that we like.
It's just genius. And yeah, I mean, if this doesn't augment a diorama, it certainly inspires ideas for a diorama or a vignette.
Yeah, I think it does. And one of the things that this does open up the possibilities for are civilian street scenes, houses, 35th scale houses, and that kind of thing, which I think would be rather nice. Obviously, it's got industrial ideas, but there are quite a lot of 32nd scale. I mean, this is 35th, but there's quite a lot of 32nd scale trucks out there. You know, I think there might even be a 32nd scale bin truck, if I seem to remember. But you know, obviously it's got that industrial sort of look, but also you've got the idea, you know, you could make, you know, shop scenes or you know, cafe scenes and that kind of thing, and have one of these around the side of the building that adds to the complexity of the scene. It's just another little set that Mini Art have produced that opens up possibilities and opens up your imagination. We love them, don't we? We really do love them.
Do you know what? I'm looking at this and I think to myself, are Mini Art dropping heavy hints here that one of their future releases will be a set of really dirty secondhand mattresses?
Or bin bags.
Or bin, well, yeah, the bin bags, you see. But actually, I think you know, 35th scale kind of like you know, 35th scale old mattresses are just brilliant. I mean, yeah, put me down for a set of these, because if I can't incorporate into something, I'll create something to incorporate them into.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen something similar to this before, haven't we? I think Meng did a set of industrial dumpsters, I think they called them. I used one on a diorama. But they're a little bit more expensive, and they're certainly a little bit more difficult to get hold of. Whereas these things should be relatively straightforward. One of the things that stands out about this, and we mentioned it in our preamble before we came on air, is how deep those molds are for these parts, and it looks like they're extremely sharp as well. So they're almost kind of molded like the real bins. You haven't got, because obviously wheelie bins are molded in one piece. These things are obviously like that as well, and you've got no seam lines around either the big dumpster or the stock kind of civilian kind of household wheelie bin, which is the small one that's on the left-hand side of this image, which I think is really, really nice. And they're just neat little things to have around, and also they're neat little accessories to paint and weather as well.
So they're brilliant little projects in their own right, because
they are.
You could spend the weekend just, you know, you're going to spend 5 minutes assembling them, but then you're going to spend a weekend painting and weathering them.
Well, I did a couple of at the beginning of last year. I did a couple of essentially facades that I put into wooden picture frames. I did one that was a Greek door that I did in something like 16th or 12th, and I also did a 35th scale alleyway with a wooden door, and I used a resin version of one of these bins on it, and it was just enough to capture your imagination. And I had a few little resin cardboard boxes around it and that kind of thing, and it was just a lovely little project. It took no more than a couple of days to put together, but it was unusual. It was a still life study of something quite mundane that was good fun to put together. But yeah, they're great, aren't they? They are really cool.
Mini Art for the win.
Mini Art for the win, yeah. And also a nice little challenge as well, because obviously they're plastic, to recreate the finish and the effect of plastic parts in paint, if that makes sense. So yeah, they're really cool. Moving on from that, we come to Hella. Hella were in the death throes not that long ago, and they seem to have sort of risen from the ashes a little bit, and we're starting to see newer kits coming out from them. We like Hella kits on the whole, don't we? And historically, we like Hella kits, but some of the newer ones are rather nice. And their latest one is a Renault Estafette truck. This one here. Now, this is the fourth Estafette that Hella have released, and they, up until now, they've produced the three leading up to that was a Gendarmerie from 1968, a slightly later Gendarmerie vehicle, and then a Commercial vehicle with flat sides. This one here looks like a baker's truck, which I think is kind of cool. I love the color scheme on this as well. The cream, the mid brown and the red brown color scheme look really great. Now these are such famous trucks in France. There are kind of millions of these things. It was made between 1959 and 1980, only replaced by the Renault Trafic. It had two different engines, Renault Ventoux and a Clermont engine. And so this thing has had a long service life, and as a result of that, there are 73 million of these things out there. They're just all over the place. It's a bit like, imagine in Britain you've got transit vans or the comma vans, those commercial vans, which it reminds me a lot of, actually, the comma. Then you get an idea. You can have them as this. You can have them as minivans. You can have them as kind of little buses. You can have them as sort of open-bodied trucks. You can have them as slab-sided trucks. All sorts of things. There are millions. It's got huge potential for conversion, huge potential for color schemes, and also huge potential for sort of weathering and use. Which is really cool. Looking at the photographs that Hella have published of this vehicle, it looks really nice. The detail looks really pretty, doesn't it? And looks like it's a sort of a step up from what you can imagine from older Hella kits. I know you built the tractor, didn't you? You built the tractor
was very, very, very nice. I mean, by and large, it's very. You've got one. You've got
I have, and it is lovely. Yeah, it's really nice.
This, looking at the sprues here, this does look like there is a degree of finesse here. There are a lot of very, very fine parts here.
I seem to remember having a conversation with the Hella guys at Nuremberg Toy Fair, and they were talking about one of the releases that was about to come out, and I'd said how nice the detail was, and he said at the time, and please don't quote me on this because there may be a slight deviation from the story, that the design of that Hella kit had also been the designer of the Tamiya Leclerc battle tank. That they'd got this guy in, and he'd worked on that, and that's why this new Hella might have been a VAB or something like that, one of the armored cars that they'd done, was so lovely. And when you look at this looks like a Japanese product. It's got that finesse about it, and certainly it's got that level of detail. And having had a look at some of the other kits that have come out from Ebro and companies like that who've done kits of French trucks, this looks to be very similar in design to that kind of thing. So I'm imagining quite good things from this. Although, you know, like I say, it's already been out. It's not a brand new kit. The other thing I noticed about this when I checked it out was this is retailing for €29, which strikes me as being very good value for money. I remember when we were in Frome Model Centre, we were looking at some of the Ebro Renault Fortinet trucks. They were like 60 quid at the time, and they were hugely expensive in comparison to this. So if we can get these Hella kits in the UK, and they come over and they're close to that price, I think that's really good value for money for a 24th scale vehicle like that has that level of detail. I love these French trucks.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the liberating thing about building that tractor last year, because I just thought, right, well, we're just going to build it as an old farm vehicle that's a bit rusty and it's just a bit kind of knackered, and great fun. And as you say, with something like this, it's got scope to build it other than a concours vehicle.
Yes, absolutely.
And I also I was going to say, I'm going to keep an eye on the price for these, because this is certainly one I would like to get to actually put on the show. To actually feature. So, and if you head over to the Hella website at the moment, they are doing some rather fine enameled mugs that have got the Saab Saphir on them.
Oh, really?
Which is a kit that every time I see that Saab Saphir, I think Actually, I wouldn't mind building that.
Yeah, it's a really nice little kit, and but I mean, certainly Hella over the years have done an awful lot of French vehicles in this scale.
Yeah.
There can't be too many of the French classics that they've not had a look at, and so this fits in nicely. But these French trucks, vans, for want of a better description, not really trucks, French vans. There's been quite a lot of these over the last the last few years, so you can get quite a little collection going. This is such a lovely little vehicle.
I would say modelers probably have very fond memories of French vans, particularly French catering vans, parked in the corner of the National Exhibition Centre at Telford.
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
absolutely. They are.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so I liked seeing this. I wasn't really aware of it from the previous 3 releases, but I really like this one, and it's certainly one. If you do get hold of one, I would be more than happy to build one side by side with you, and that might actually be something that we could do as a not as a challenge, but as one of the timed
we've got
collaborative builds
going on here. We've got the secret challenges, but we've also got these kind of dual build idea where we both do something within a timed period, but we're actually sharing what we're doing as we're doing it. So we kind of like bounce ideas off of each other. But yeah, it's on the list. Let's put it that way. Let's have a big shout out to everybody who's watching this evening. Bless you. Some of you have even given up the last half hour of Russian Cleveland on Sky Arts, although I haven't because I've got it on Blu-ray. Quite weird.
Cleveland. Yeah, I thought you said Rushing Cleveland.
No, not Rushing Cleveland. That would be nice if they played
Rushing Cleveland. Does anything Rushing Cleveland?
No, we've had who was that boy band? Harry Styles. Them. They did a film in Cleveland. They filmed on Cleveland Pier. One Direction, is that them? I've no idea.
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
Is that the place where we went and had
we went to the end of exactly. Let's just say a big hello to so here we are, the first one they've got Artie Mod. Hello Artie Mod, hello Pavel, hello Rob Monfils, Tony McEwen, Anthony Bird, Andy Brennan, Dave Swinnerly and Goldstraw, Greg Woodbridge, Vincent Murphy, Paul Milligan, Juan Francisco Molinido, Mike Williams, Ian Rusco, Douglas Hunter, David Mummery, David Tennant. I was getting a bit excited there. Dennis Tennant, Wayne A. Beatty, Brian Wilton, Dave Fleming, Peter Marshall, Dave Coward, Steve Moores, and Simon Dixon, and Tony Bork, and Jerry Doyle, Jen Wright. It's just, I honestly, I will be here all this evening reading out your lovely names. But thank you for joining us. That's very, very, very kind of you. And Tim Cavalier has just joined us. So isn't that? And Michael Scott. It's fabulous. Thank you for joining us. Let's move on now to what was actually the second item on the script here. But Mr. Pollard got overexcited and went straight to Hella. So
that's not how it prints out, Mr. Oh, that is actually. I did. Yes,
I'm sat here thinking, stick to the script, man.
Oh, yes. I do notice that. Yeah, but it was only one line.
Doesn't matter. I know.
Very sorry.
That's all right. But we actually, potentially, I think that truck is on a, of the two, I'd be more interested in building the truck than this, although this item is actually one of my favorite subjects, which is the Henschel 126. Now, this is a new kit that is coming on the way from Brengun. They're going to be doing several boxings here. I think these are kind of like early takes on the box art for the first 2. But they have down on their list, they have it down as a 126A1 Spain, a 126B1, 126A1B1 Sand and Snow, and a 126A1B1 Exotic Users. So, yes. I love the Henschel 126. It's just one of those aeroplanes that I find endlessly fascinating. Loads of color schemes you can throw at these, and quite challenging color schemes you can throw at these, including the Spanish Civil War aircraft. You can see photographs of the early test shots and builds of these models over on the Bren Gun Facebook page, which we will link to after the show. My first exposure to the aeroplane was with the Airfix kit back in the late 1970s. Now, if you've never seen this kit, this is one of the best Airfix Luftwaffe kits that were made in the 70s. It is extraordinarily well detailed. You know, phenomenally well detailed. A couple of really good figures, including a standing guy with the camera. Frankly, I'd like to see this come back in the Vintage Classics range at some stage. So, really fabulous kit. It was also kitted by Italieri, and this is their first boxing around the same time as the Airfix kit, possibly a bit earlier. And of course, it was also kitted by the greatest kit company ever to exist, which was Matchbox. And they did one as well, probably the weakest of the 3 72nd scale kits, but it was, at the time, it was cheaper than the Airfix one because it was a purple range one, whereas the Airfix one was Series 3. But good to see the Henschel 126 getting a modern day take from Bren Gun, who do some nice kits. And yeah, I will be grabbing one of these as and when they come out because I think it's a fabulous aeroplane. And
yeah, it's not an aeroplane I've ever built in miniature. I didn't build, I built most of the Matchbox kits, but I didn't build that one for some reason. I certainly don't remember building it, and I've never owned the Airfix one. Certainly not had that. But yeah, it is a great subject, and it's bigger than you think as well. So it's quite a sizable machine. It's got all that stalky legs and the wings with all of the struts, and it's interesting as a result of that because it's like a biplane where the bottom wings just fell off. It's a really cool looking machine. There's lots of things that you can detail. Cockpits are open as well, or the rear cockpit's open so you can see inside. I'd imagine Bren Gun are going to offer quite a lot of detail on this kit as well. I'm imagining recessed panel lines. Well, photo etch part and parcel of that. It'll be a plastic kit with photo etch, I would imagine.
No idea. I think the best thing to do is, well, like I say, we'll put a link up after the show. I think people follow Bren Gun on Facebook and they'll
see what they have to say. Yeah,
but it's one of those subjects that I think ICM did. ICM do it in 48th. I think somebody did because it's very reboxed it. I'm sure it was ICM, but it's one of those. It's been described as the Luftwaffe's Lysander, and I can see why, because it does superficially. You can see kind of similarities. Obviously the Lysander was fully enclosed cockpit, but as I say, it's a fascinating subject. And yeah, color schemes, Desert One, Spanish Civil War, Russian Front, export users, because I noticed that's down as the exotic users one. The Greeks flew them. There were Dave Fleming will no doubt chipping in on this in a second. There were captured ones that the British flew in North Africa. And as that Italeri box art demonstrates, there were the ones which arrived in North Africa in the standard European camouflage, which, a bit like the Stukas, were then rapidly overpainted with sand to break them up a bit more. So fabulous choice from Bren Gun. Thank you very much. I think that's going to be a tremendous prospect for them.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next item, which we're jumping around a bit tonight. We have from ICM, they've done a number of 35th scale Model T Ford variants, but this is the latest one which has come along, and it's caught my eye because it's a Commonwealth one. It's an Anzac operated vehicle, and again, you look at the model and instantly there are ideas pinging around on what you can do with this. It's interesting because it's essentially you're taking a civilian vehicle and it's been militarized, and it's a bit like those Rolls-Royce armored cars. You know, it's a basic. They were 100 this year, by the way, 100 years old this year, the Rolls-Royce armored cars. But this takes essentially a civilian vehicle with a bit of a military twist. I'm looking at this, and not only am I thinking tremendous weathering possibilities as well, tremendous weathering possibilities, but also it's one of those vehicles that you can load it up with stowage. it looks from from the box art and from the shots that ICM have released, it does look fabulous. And again, adding to the huge list of things, even if we don't actually get around to building them, again, this is something I'd like to get hold of to be able to photograph it and talk about it as and when it gets released, because it's that crossover thing. Is people who don't build cars, well, if you're a military modeler, you think I've never built a car. Well, here's something to kind of do a little bit of a crossover with.
Yeah. I can't help, when I look at stuff like that, I just think that'd look cool as a moonshine vehicle. I just think of stupid stuff, or with like wooden beams or a little kind of builder's truck or something like that. I sort of I wander off in that. I think Brett Green's just built one of these, actually. I think he might have had it in one of the magazines, and it does look really nice. But it's tiny, really tiny little thing. So it's a lovely little project to get your head around. I agree with you over the stowage though. You put loads of stuff in the back of that thing, sort of a First World War LRDG with loads of bits and pieces and bags and kits and stuff.
If only there was another company that did that kind of thing.
Which kind of thing?
Well, stowage and things that you could put in the back, like, I don't know, kind of like beer crates and casks and
there you go,
stuff like that.
There you go. Loads of wooden barrels and boxes and all that. Yeah, they would look cool. I like the idea of that. It's a good little vehicle, and that's the sort of second of our odd little vehicles that we've looked at this week. So moving on to a not odd little vehicle, although an odd little kit of this. We've looked at Zvezda's 100th scale range over the last, I guess, few months. The ones that are designed for wargaming, and they're about to release an SU 122 in 100 scale. That's this thing. This thing has been so widely kitted now. I mean, it's 35th scale kits from Zvezda, Mini Art Tamiya, 48 scale kits from Tamiya, 72nd scale kit from UM and companies like that, plus a 156th scale kit from Rubicon as well. So there's plenty of choice of these. I've seen some of these 100 scale kits. In fact, I think I might have some of them from Zvezda, and they're really nice. They're a nice sort of tiny scale, if you like, between 72nd, 76th, and 144th. They sit nicely in the middle of that. Certainly, from what we've seen of the various CAD renderings, the model, despite its tiny size, is going to be nicely detailed, and it will be like a lot of these Zvezda kits in this range. It'll have only a handful of parts, so it'll be a matter of minutes to put together before you can start painting it. But I think that if you can sort of get hold of one of these, or even, as we've discussed before, get hold of a bunch of these things and some of the little figures that go with it, you could be creating vignettes or dioramas on a beer mat size base.
I need to say that because as you are talking, I am just going over to the YouTube to find Martin Kovac's Night Shift Modeler, the best modeling channel out there, by the way, and he built the Zvezda. It was one of the little 100 scale Stugs, and I've just posted the link up onto the Facebook page. He built it, and he built it into a diorama as well, and it is fabulous. It's just amazing what you can do with these things. I know we've spoken about these, about some of these things, about perhaps doing them as a weekend project, a kind of ride along weekend project. But yeah, they are ridiculously cheap. They are superbly molded. I built two of them year before last. I think it was a King Tiger and a Jag Tiger. They're just, honestly, the detail on them is good enough to kind of go up to 72nd scale, even 48 scale. They are very, very good.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing something tiny like this. It's been a while since I've done any 72nd scale armor. Quite a while, actually. I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe 10 years since I've done anything armor or vehicle based in 72nd scale. So I do quite like the idea of doing a small scale vehicle, and dropping down to 100th would be something that would be even more enjoyable. But like I say, I've seen some of these kits and they are really, really nice. So I'm looking forward to seeing one of these arrive. I'll have to have a word with the powers that be to see whether we can get hold of a couple of these and see and put them together and paint them and put them up on the page. Now that we're all we all seem to be back in the swing of it, don't we? After the Christmas break, we're back very much in the swing. So this is Zvezda's 100 scale SU-122 for fans of that vehicle. Just a little diversion if you fancy doing something small and doing something detailed.
The thing I like about these is something we've been very keen to kind of emphasize is they're cheap.
Yeah,
they're pretty much widely available, and they're dead easy to build.
Yeah.
So if you're strapped for budget, or you just want something that you can kind of like start on a Friday night and finish the finishing touches on a Sunday evening, one of these, a couple of these, and honestly, I've just put the link up on the Facebook page to Martin Kovac's, where he builds one over the space of a weekend and incorporates it into a little diorama, a little vignette. Yeah, you should see what you can do with these things. They're really quite beautiful, and yeah, like I say, we've spoken about looking at some of these Zvezda easy build things and some of the 1/100th stuff and some of the figures as well. So again, we have a crowded schedule of ideas here, but we will endeavor to bring you one of these. In fact, we will be bringing you very soon. I will do one of the 1/72nd scale quick build tanks and probably do a pop-up live show just showing one of those being put together, because they go together ridiculously easy.
Yeah,
and they're cheap as well. So fabulous looking tank though, isn't it? It just
it's great. Yeah, and in larger scales, the Tamiya kit is one that I do fancy having a
fairly
crack
recent
at.
one, isn't it?
It's the 48 scale one is, but obviously the 122 was released at the same time as the T34, so
right.
It's an older kit, but it's been re-released kind of on and off over the years. I found 3 incarnations of the box art, for instance, of that kit. So yes, but moving on, we come to a new tool that I believe you've become. I'm hesitant to say excited over, because this is a PG-12.
PG-12, yeah.
But something that you've discovered and seemingly become quite pleased with.
Well, again, we mentioned him just now, Martin Kovac, Mr. Uncle Night Shift himself. I blame him for this because it's
usually me that you blame.
Oh, I blame everybody. I lost my thread. I was watching one of his videos a few weeks ago, could have been a couple of months ago. I'm desperately trying to find it again, because he was talking about buying a new airbrush, and he was, much like me, talking about getting branded quality ones like Iwata's, and like you, I swear by the Church of Iwata. They're just absolutely bomb-proof airbrushes, and to my mind, they're not expensive for what you're paying for. They are. I mean, you can get the Neos, or you can get the Sparmax ones, branded equivalents, and they're, you're looking at about 60 quid. I know that sounds, I'm being glib, that sounds like a lot of money, but when you see people kind of, I've built this Tamiya Tiger tank and I've put some free model tracks on it, and I've put Aber gun barrel, and it's got all the photo etch, and I'm trying to paint it with a £10 airbrush I got off eBay. You think, yeah, perhaps you invest in the airbrush first, aggregate that cost over. Anyway, Martin mentioned this airbrush, and he was eulogizing about it because it cost him, I think it was about €35, which I had to go and double check. Anyway, he was using it again on his recent video where he's building this Russian tank roller thing, mine roller thing. And the airbrush he's using is Fengda, yes, me too, a Fengda FE or BD 180. Comes with a Mac valve and a whole host of other features. But Martin's using it, and it looks tremendous in terms of its capabilities. So, in the interests of science and also curiosity, I went on to a well-known rainforest sounding retailer, online retailer, and did a search for them. And I found one post free, £27.99. Now, at this stage, you're all probably thinking, JM, you steaming great hypocrite. You're always telling people that cheap airbrushes are, buy cheap, buy twice. Yeah, but I've got my Iwata, so I'm buying this as an experiment because I want to see what this thing is actually like. Because the stuff that Martin is pushing out with it is phenomenal. And yeah, I decided we'll take a punt on that and see what it's like. And if it's any good, we'll obviously report back on this show, do a thorough thing, probably even do some demos. Well, definitely do some demos with it and let you know what it's like. But all I keep hearing are good reviews of it. And if anybody out there has also had any experience of this, Fengda, yes, exactly. I've never heard of them either. I mean, these things sometimes do look beautifully put together, but then you start using them, they fall apart in about 5 minutes. But this doesn't. This actually looks an exceptional quality build, including, the Mac valve and what appears to be it has got a limiter on it as well, a needle limiter. So if you've come across this brand and you've used it, please let us know what your experiences are. But as I say, Uncle Nightshift is raving about this airbrush.
I have to say, it's got some remarkably custom micron flourishes on this brush. It's, for instance, it's got a crown cap, which is quite a high-end feature. It's got the open body, which is quite a high-end feature. The rear body of this looks to be brushed metal, brushed aluminium, rather than the chrome of the rest of it. It looks like the limiter is very similar to the one that's on the custom micron, which is, instead of it being like a kind of a loose screw, it's much more kind of machined so that it's a more precise action on that. Also, it's got the Mac valve. I'm struggling to get my head around how it's possible for this airbrush to be $27.99 and for it to look like that to begin with, unless when you get hold of it, a lot of the materials inside are very soft, easily deformed. That's one of the things that sets expensive airbrushes apart from cheap ones like that. You have hardened sections within them. A lot of it,
This was one that I bought last year before last, because it was advertised for £10, and I thought, well, I'm willing to blow £10 to see how long this will last. 18 months later, it's actually still working, and it's still working as well as when I bought it.
Yeah,
and it does have a Mac valve that does work to a degree. It has got a limiter at the end, which definitely does work. The one thing I have noticed is it's starting to rust inside, right?
Yeah.
And also, the componentry on this it's aluminium. It's a very light airbrush. In fact, when Drew picked it up, I said, "How about this?" He picked it up, and his first words were expletive. That's very light. It does feel like actually it feels like you crush it, you break it. But this external finish on this one has had lacquer thinner, you name it, on it, and it still looks pretty darn good. I would not trust this model on your 32nd scale Tornado, you see. But when it comes to old Trikey here, I probably use it for that, just to give it a go. Use at your risk these cheapo airbrushes, because sometimes they can be very good. Sometimes they can, like I say, literally fall apart. My instinct and my recommendation is always go for a branded one like Iwata, like Sparmax.
Well, if for no other reason than you have the after sales. If anything goes wrong with it, you can get it repaired. You can get them serviced. You can do all of those kind of things. And the airbrush company who bring these things in have got a very good care package, which you don't get with airbrushes that are non-branded. So
£10 airbrush off the internet, not going to get.
Yeah. So, but I'm very interested to see what this brush is like. I'm assuming that you'll be getting this shortly.
I am actually hoping it will arrive either tomorrow or I was going to say either tomorrow or Monday. Tomorrow is Monday.
And part of the reason why I'm feeling somewhat positive about this is that I bought, and I'm not sure that if I've sort of shown you this before, but I bought some paintbrushes off said website that came through from Germany. And if I just grab them, and I think I mentioned them a while back, and they were these ones here. As you can see there, matte black finish. I bought 2 sets of these. They cost something like £5 a set, and there were 8 brushes in there or something along those lines. They're some of the best brushes I've ever used for modeling, and yet they were cheap as chips. And I thought, maybe your preconceptions are not. It's sort of peculiar, you know. I also bought these as well. You can see these. These are flat brushes that I wanted. They're so soft. They're kind of like sable brushes. Again, I bought a full set of these. As you can see, a full set of flat brushes. They're beautiful. And they were like 14 quid or something. Now, you know how much those kind of things are. So I think for us to come on here and say, well, don't buy this because it's cheap, you might find when this airbrush comes that you're going to go, wow.
Well, case in point, Daler Rowney.
Yep.
The Simply Value range. I think I actually sent you a couple of these.
You did. And they were great.
2 brushes for £1.
£1, yeah. I think
I've been using these for washes and just kind of general stuff that I wouldn't want to let my best brushes do.
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm going to invest in some more of them.
I went into the local. We've got a garden centre just up the road, and I went up there, and they've got like the you know, I was going to say the range, the place that sells the cheap books and the works inside there, and they were the same. They've got some little packs of what they said were sable paintbrushes, and they were 4 quid for 4 or something. I was like, 4 quid. I get a pack of those. They were great. They were really cool, you know. And the thing is, I don't know what you're like, but I don't expect paintbrushes that I own to last me more than a year. I certainly wouldn't, given how sort of vigorous I am with them in terms of work. I don't really want to go out and buy Series 7 paintbrushes that cost 14 quid each. So I'm very interested to see how this airbrush looks, because I think if you're impressed by it and it looks like it's a good deal, I think I may purchase one of these and try it, you know, and use it sort of day to day as a sort of a go-to, and use the Iwatas and the Procon Boy as kind of like the more
again a lot of shouts here for the Procon Boy, because Darren McGuinness says bought a Procon airbrush this year, high quality, lower price alternative to the Iwata. I love it. David Mumrick says got a Procon, its first airbrush, stunning for the price. Andy Brennan says I have a Procon Boy PS770, performs as well as a custom Micron for half the money. And in fact, I was looking at one of the Procon airbrushes when I was in Frome just before Christmas.
Yeah,
and I was thinking, okay, well, you know, always good to have a spare airbrush for all the other spare airbrushes.
I have to say, I bought a Procon PS270, and I've got that. It's sat to the side of me. I bought that to work alongside the Iwata, and the Procon, once I'd got it settled in my hand, because it's a bit bigger than an Iwata, it's slightly longer and a bit heavier. I really like it, and it became a day-to-day airbrush. Those Pro Convoy airbrushes are really good for the price. They're very, very good, and they are cheaper than the iWatters, but they're fabulous. Yeah, I agree.
So this will turn up, and we will. I tell you what, if it turns up, it will be ideal to actually really put it to the test on this little SD KFZ half track, the 251, because I am going to do that in the tricolor scheme.
Wow.
Yeah, I know something like that. I would reach for my favourite airbrush, which is the detailing airbrush, which is the Badger Chrome, which is a fabulous airbrush for doing fine work with. And I was lucky enough to be given one of these, but it's beautiful airbrush.
You're a terrible shill.
No, I use them. That's the point. I use them. Whereas with the old Triceratops, it might give old Red a run.
Yeah, give it a go. Because you'll end up painting that Triceratops to look like basically a Second World War German fighter, won't you?
We were talking about this because, again, marvelous crossover subject. This because essentially, I was looking at some of the study models that they built, that Stan Winston Studios built for the original Jurassic Park. 30 years ago, they started working on that, and essentially, a kind of like a tan underbelly, and then a slight kind of like almost like an olive drab uppers with kind of like scalloping, and then some of the kind of warty details have like mottling effects on them. It's honestly it's like the texturing is armor, the painting is an aeroplane. But great fun. This is where I started my modelling off as a kid, was building dinosaurs. We think the other week. So to actually kind of come back, to build something like this and throw new ideas at it. But yeah,
Is it just that one you've got to build, or have you got to build some others?
I think there might be a T-Rex at some stage, and possibly a Stegosaurus. But it's just a standalone model at the moment. So yeah, I'm as I've said, this is the thing I like about just things being asked, can you build this? And it's like, yeah, I could build that. Whether it's something I would ordinarily build is an entirely different thing. As I've said on the show before, two of the projects in the most recent years that I built, which were way out of my comfort zone, which I hugely enjoyed, were the 1/9 scale Vespa scooter and the 24th scale Land Rover, Fire Brigade Land Rover. I'd never go out and buy them. I'd have no interest in building either of them. But out of the comfort zone, built them. Fabulous projects.
Give them a go.
Yeah, exactly. We got to that time in the evening where... Any other bits?
No, I don't think there is at the moment. No. This is how my mind works. No other business. I noticed that having announced that we are about to see a 48 scale F4B from Tamiya at some point in the near future, I noticed that the decal manufacturers, I think Furball in particular, have started announcing and showing their workings for decal sheets that will be coming over the sort of coming months, and some very nice schemes in there as well, which are rather lovely. So that'll, and having used Furball decals on a number of projects over the last few years, I can attest to how nice they are. They really do quite literally pack them into the sheet, which can be a bit of an issue, but they certainly look good, and the choices of schemes on there were rather nice, including somewhat obviously a VF80 Force scheme, which what can you say? But the other ones were really nice, and they were great. I feel like I may have stepped into Spence's Sunday night losing viewers by suggesting that Jolly Roger's schemes are the least interesting scheme imaginable, but including a particular friend of mine who is a massive fan. So I apologise.
Add that to the list of people you can upset.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, I know we talked about that kit on Monday, but again, I've noticed you can't win. You cannot win these days because Airfix do a chipmunk, a 48 scale chipmunk. People are disappointed. Oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? Tamiya do Money in the Bank 48 scale F4B. Oh, why can't you be more adventurous? What do you want? Really? The people who will be happy will be the people who go out and buy these kits in huge numbers. And to be honest with you, they're the ones that make the difference.
Yeah,
you know, and that.
I mean, we need to. I think we also need to remember that, and we've discussed this many times on the show. We also need to remember that the people who make these comments online tend to fit within about the 5% of vocal modelers. 95% of modelers who buy the kits en masse don't get involved. They just go out and buy the kit, glue it together, enjoy it, and all of that sort of stuff. The major sales come from that segment. Doesn't come from the 5% or the people who come online and say it's the wrong scale, the wrong subject, the wrong variant, it's too expensive, blah blah blah. So yeah, and even if I know the discussion has been about the expense of the kit, and it is expensive, and we've said that on here, it isn't going to be a cheap kit. But even if it was 25 quid, people would still complain that it was another 48 scale Phantom. So you can't really win, can you? It's just one of those. Really.
Steve Moores has just said new Italeri Tornado IDS in 32nd scale. We covered that on Monday night show, Steve. So if you go back through the timeline, it's our Monday night show that replaced our Wednesday night show. It's all on there because we looked at the Italeri 2021 releases and the Tamiya 2021 releases as well. So get your teeth in there. Nothing else from me. Obviously, boys and girls, if you see something interesting that you think we should be covering and a new release, because stuff pops up. I got caught out this last week rather because somebody emailed a link and it was like, oh, this looks like an interesting new company. And it's like, no, it's just Trumpeter rebranding things again. So, if you come across something interesting, do let us know, especially if it is, Spencer and I tend to be a little bit kind of biased towards tanks and airplanes. So if it is something, ships, cars, trains, even figures, you name it, just keep us on our toes so that we can include it in the show. Also, a bit of any other business which has been brought up on the timeline here, which is to wish Captain Tom Moore a speedy recovery. Indeed. Because he has been diagnosed with COVID-19, but he's a tough old bird. You don't get to be 100 and walk up and down your garden and raise, what was it, £34 million?
Something ridiculous, yeah.
I'm sure COVID-19 will regret picking on Major Tom, quite frankly, Sir Major Tom. So,
and also, you and I have something in common now, don't we? From Friday, that we both, our mothers, respective mums, both had their initial jabs as well, which is very good. So that's sort of working its way through the system, which we're very pleased about. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I shall be glad when I get mine, but I'm further down the queue. But it's...
you're much closer to getting yours than I am to getting mine, though.
No, but
given the disparity in our respective ages,
6 months.
Is it 6 months? Is it as much as that?
6 months. When's your birthday again?
December the 28th.
28th. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Oh, it's 8 months.
Oh, you're a whole school year ahead.
You're 60. You were born in 67, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, best year.
It was absolutely the best year.
Absolutely a fabulous year.
Great vintage.
A truly vintage year. Guys, turn into last of the summer wine now. On that note, obviously, we are where we are at the moment. So everybody out there, stay safe, stay out of trouble, do your bit to keep the numbers down, and we will be most grateful. And we will be back on Wednesday when we have no idea what we're talking about Wednesday, because we tend to usually throw a topic at each other about half an hour before the show and go, yeah, let's talk about that, shall we? What are we going to talk
Ooh,
about?
now I fancy a topic.
Oh, go on, topic. Well,
Can you get topic?
I know you've got loads of penguin bars, but
I have got loads of penguins, but I do fancy a topic now. Can you still buy topics? I imagine you can.
Unbelievable. Man is obsessed with chocolate.
Yes.
Can't blame you, actually.
Yeah.
So we will see you on Wednesday. So thank you to everybody who's joined us tonight. We really are grateful you've given up an hour of your Sunday evening to watch two men stave off the inevitable ravages of age.
Badly.
We will see you on Wednesday. Thank you very much. And it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Good night.